My loved ones alleged I fabricated my credentials. Then they presented proof. Can you imagine standing there, accused of being a fraud, of faking your entire career by your own family? My heart was a drum in my chest. But then the judge, this formidable woman with silver hair, looked at my case files, and her face, it completely changed. A look of pure shock. "You are brilliant," she said. I swear, the whole room went silent. What the hell was happening? So, picture this. I'm sitting in the stuffy meeting room. Smells like old wood and expensive perfume. Across from me, my sister Clare is fidgeting with her pearl necklace, her face all prim and proper. My parents are flanking her, radiating the smug sense of vindication. My mother, with that tone she perfected over the years, the one that makes you feel like an idiot just for existing, announces to the three-member panel, "We have evidence. Our daughter has been lying about her qualifications for years. She has never taken the bar exam." The panel consisted of Judge Evelyn West, who I knew, David Grant, a big-shot senior partner, and Detective James Walker from the Fraud Division. They all had files in front of them. Judge West looked at me, her gaze piercing. "Miss Harper," she said, "you've been incredibly silent. Do you wish to reply?" I just held her stare. My lawyer, Andrew, had told me to let them talk. Let them get confident. Claire leaned forward, her designer blouse rustling. "Your Honor, my sister has always been a family disappointment. She barely finished high school when some little-known Ohio community college. The idea she could pass the Massachusetts bar is ridiculous." My father nodded emphatically. "We try to help her," he chimed in, his voice thick with contrived anguish. "But she's been living in a dream world. When we found out she was actually representing clients, we felt we had to act." Judge West's face remained bland, but then something flickered. She opened the file closest to her, and I saw it. A slight widening of her eyes, a tiny catch in her breath, her fingers tightening on the paper's edge. "Miss Harper," she said slowly, "you argued before me last year, the Fitzgerald case." The room went utterly still. "I remember you quite clearly," Judge West continued, her voice shifting, gaining an edge. "I describe it as the most amazing defense I'd seen in 30 years on the bench. Why is your family alleging you're not a licensed attorney?" My mother's face went pale. Claire's mouth opened and closed like a fish. "Perhaps," I murmured, speaking for the first time, "we should start from the beginning." Growing up, being the younger daughter in the Harper household meant living in Claire's shadow. She was everything my parents wanted: beautiful, charming, effortlessly popular. Straight A's without studying, football captain boyfriend. Accepted to Yale before senior year even ended. My parents made it crystal clear which daughter was a prize, and which was the consolation. Claire was blonde, willowy. I was dark-haired, solid. Where she excelled naturally, I fought for every B-. At dinner parties, after her third glass of wine, my mother would occasionally mention the "oops, baby." "Why aren't you more like your sister?" became my mother's favorite refrain, delivered with increasing frustration. The comparison solidified the summer after my sophomore year of high school. Claire just finished her first year at Yale Law, and my parents threw a celebration. I served appetizers in a black dress my mother bought me, playing the helpful younger sister, while Claire held court about constitutional law and her summer internship at some prestigious New York firm. Then Mrs. Jackson from next door chirped, "And what about you? What are your intentions for college?" Before I could breathe a word, my mother ejected, "Oh, she'll probably go to the community college downtown." Claire chuckled. That tinkling sound everyone found so delightful. "Not everyone is cut out for higher education," she said, patting my shoulder. "There's no shame in knowing your limitations." Something hardened in me that night. I was 16. I resolved that one day I would make them regret every condescending word. My parents made it clear Claire's Ivy League expenses had depleted the family education fund. So I kept my head down, improved my grades, and looked into colleges I could actually afford. Whatever I wanted, I'd have to pay for. They sent me a check for $3,500, with my father explicitly stating, "That's all the support we can afford." Claire's Yale education was $55,000 a year. I just took the money and left. Lakewood Community College in rural Ohio wasn't prestigious, but it was affordable and far enough from Connecticut. There, something surprising happened. When I wasn't constantly compared to my sister, I could focus. I took a full course load, worked 25 hours a week at a diner. My grades soared. By my second semester, I had a perfect GPA. My advisor, Professor Linda Carter, a former prosecutor, saw something in me my family never did. You have a natural instinct for legal reasoning, she told me. Have you ever considered law school? I laughed bitterly. My sister went to Yale Law. I'm the family disappointment, remember? Professor Carter's brows narrowed. Everyone who matters, she said. Let me tell you about law school. It's not where you start. It's about how hard you're willing to work. And you, based on my observations, work harder than anybody else. That talk stuck with me. For the first time, someone felt I was more than just Harper's kid. Over the next 2 years, Professor Carter became my mentor. She pushed me harder than anyone. When I graduated from Lakewood with an associate's degree, she gave me a letter of recommendation and a list of law schools with need-based scholarships. Don't let anyone tell you what you're capable of, she said, especially not family. I applied to Suffolk University Law School in Boston. It wasn't Yale, but it had a strong reputation. I wrote an honest essay about being underestimated, proving myself, and wanted to represent those without a voice. In March, I got an admission letter with a full scholarship. I called my parents. Law school? My mother's voice was dripping with skepticism. You're not serious. I told her about the full ride. My father got on the phone. Look, honey, we understand you want to improve yourself, but law school? You battled just to get through high school. This will be a major waste of your time and their resources. I tried to tell them about my 3.8 GPA. Community college, my mother scoffed. It's not the same thing. Claire would never say this, but we're concerned you're setting yourself up for a disastrous failure. I hung up. I packed my belongings into my 12-year-old Honda and drove to Boston. Suffolk law was brutal. My parents were right. It was incredibly demanding. I studied 70 hours a week, lived on ramen and peanut butter, and slept very little. The other students came from better schools, better backgrounds. They had connections. But I had Professor Carter's words in my head and a burning desire to prove everyone wrong. That first year, instead of going home for Thanksgiving, I worked as a hostess. My family didn't visit, didn't call. They sent a card with a $70 bill and a letter that said, "Thinking of you during this difficult time." Meanwhile, Claire was promoted to junior partner at her New York firm. My mother's Facebook was flooded with photos of Claire winning awards, being interviewed. The golden child continued to shine. I just studied harder. By my second year, something shifted. The law started making sense. I saw the patterns, the arguments. My contract professor, Dr. Helen Vasquez, approached me. You have exceptional analytical skills. Have you considered applying for law review? Law review? That was for the top students, the ones headed for Supreme Court clerkships. Not a community college, transfer, working 3 part-time jobs. You should apply, she said. I'll write you a recommendation. I made law review. I earned the Academic Excellence Award for second-year students and got a summer internship at a small criminal defense firm. I called my parents to tell them. That's great, honey, my mother said, her voice already distracted. Claire just got engaged. He's a Harvard MBA. They're planning a spring wedding. Of course they were. I graduated summa cum laude, third in my class, with 2 job offers. The bar exam was in July. I prepared like my life depended on it. My parents didn't attend my graduation. Claire's wedding was the same weekend. Priorities. I stood there, surrounded by classmates and their proud families, feeling that familiar ache of being forgotten. But Professor Carter came all the way from Ohio, sat in the second row, and cheered when they called my name. She took me to dinner afterward. Your family doesn't deserve you, she observed over spaghetti. But that doesn't matter. You did it for yourself. I did it to prove them wrong. I corrected. She grinned. That works, too. I moved into a small studio in Cambridge and worked as a clerk while waiting for bar results. They came in November, 6:47 a.m. I passed. Top 5%. I cried on my apartment floor before calling my parents. That's excellent, honey, my mother said, her voice preoccupied. Your father and I are on our way to Clare's. She's pregnant. We're helping with the nursery. I passed the bar exam. Yes, you mentioned that. We're really proud. Listen, can we call you back? We're almost there. They never called back. Morrison and Associates specialize in criminal defense. The job was hard, the hours long, the pay terrible, but I loved it. I love building cases, the thrill of cross-examination, the satisfaction of getting acquittals for clients others had written off. My supervisor, Robert Taylor, a grizzled veteran, taught me everything. You're very good at this, he said after my first trial win. You have instincts most lawyers never develop. I worked every case like it was the most important of my career. I built a reputation for being thorough, relentless, prepared. Other attorneys started referring clients. Judges began recognizing me. My family had no idea. We spoke maybe 5 times a year. Brief calls where my mother updated me on Clare's accomplishments and asked perfunctory questions about my little law job. Then came the Fitzgerald case. Daniel Fitzgerald, accused of embezzling $3 million. The evidence was damning. Wire transfers, forged documents, a paper trail straight to him. The prosecution was confident. The media had already convicted him. Frank, my boss, gave me the case. This is your opportunity, he said. High profile, plenty of attention. Win this, and you'll make a name for yourself. I spent 4 months preparing, dissecting every document, bank statement, email. I hired forensic accountants, tracked down witnesses, and slowly, painstakingly, found the inconsistencies, the patterns that didn't fit, the timelines that made no sense. The trial lasted 2 weeks, presided over by Judge Evelyn West. Fair but exacting, no tolerance for incompetence. Every day, the courtroom was packed. Piece by piece, I dismantled the prosecution's case. After 6 hours of deliberation, Judge West summoned me to the bench. I had demonstrated how the wire transfers were manipulated, the documents backdated, and that the true embezzler was Daniel's supervisor, who had fled to the Cayman Islands 3 days before the investigation started. Miss Harper, she remarked, that was the best defense I've seen in 30 years on this bench. You have an outstanding future ahead of you. The legal world noticed. Calls came from larger firms, offers of partnership, invitations to speak. My business grew. I moved to a better apartment. I could finally afford something other than ramen. Still, I didn't tell my family. What was the point? 2 years after Fitzgerald, my reputation was solidified. I was handling complex cases, mentoring junior attorneys. Frank officially named me a partner. Harper and Morrison. It had a nice ring. My relationship with my family remained surface level. Obligatory holiday calls, generic birthday cards, the occasional Facebook interaction where my mother would comment on Clare's posts but ignore mine. Clare herself viewed me with mild curiosity, like a distant cousin. In March, I got a wedding invitation on heavy cardstock with gold embossing. My cousin Sophie was getting married. Clare's husband, Ethan, came from old money. They had 2 kids, a brownstone, a Hamptons house. I hadn't seen most of my extended family in a decade, but something compelled me to RSVP. The wedding was at a country club I'd driven past 1,000 times growing up, but never entered. I wore a navy dress, minimal jewelry, trying to blend in. My plan: show up, congratulate Sophie, leave before the reception ended. I was at the bar when Clare approached me. She was stunning in a rose-colored gown, blonde hair perfectly styled, diamonds glittering. "There you are," she said, her voice warm, but her eyes calculating. "We've barely seen you in years. What have you been up to?" "Working," I said simply. "Still at that little firm in Boston." She sipped her champagne. "That's sweet. Ethan and I were just talking. We should come visit someday and see how the other half lives." The condescension was slight, but undeniable. I felt 16 again, serving appetizers, while everyone admired the golden child. My mother joined us, escorted by 2 friends. Rachel was just asking about my children. Clare is a partner at Strickland and Morris in Manhattan. And here is my younger daughter, who works as a lawyer in Boston. Some sort of legal work. She waved her hand dismissively. You know I don't understand all the details. Honey, you deal with criminals or something. One friend looked uneasy. The other, Patricia, smiled. Oh, are you a public defender? That is such noble work. I'm a criminal defense attorney in private practice. I said. Same thing. My mother piped up. Claire laughed. Come on, Mom. There's a significant distinction between public defenders and real criminal lawyers. No offense, she added, glancing at me. I'm sure you're doing fine. Something inside me snapped. I'd been broken before and put myself back together, but this was different. This was the last straw after years of being ridiculed, ignored, undervalued. Actually, I responded, my voice calm. I just won the MO case last month. The newspapers described it as the biggest white-collar victory in Massachusetts this year. Claire's face didn't change. That is nice, she said. My mother touched my arm. I'm sure that felt like a huge deal. We're proud of your efforts here. Now, let's find your father. He wants photos of both his girls. They drifted away, leaving me with Patricia, who offered a sympathetic grin. For what it's worth, she murmured gently, I think it's amazing. Criminal law is quite complicated. I thanked her and ordered another drink. I stayed for the rest of the reception, watching my family, listening to them praise Claire's accomplishments while carefully avoiding asking about mine. When I got home that night, I sat in my living room and made a decision. I was done trying to earn their respect. I was done waiting for them to see me. I was not going to let them diminish me any longer. 4 months after the wedding, Andrew Collins, an attorney I'd worked with, called me. His voice was concerned. Are you sitting down? What's wrong? He asked. Someone filed a complaint with the State Bar Association against you. They say you fabricated your qualifications, that you never truly passed the bar. You've been practicing law illegally for years. My blood ran cold. That's insane. Who? Your family, Andrew said. Your parents and sister filed a joint complaint. They have documents and affidavits. They claim you lied about graduating from law school and forged your bar passage certificate. I couldn't breathe. What did they do? There will be a hearing. The disciplinary committee wants to investigate. This is serious. If they believe the charges, you could lose your license, face criminal charges. I sat down hard. My family had truly done this. They sought to destroy my career because I had finally accomplished something they could not ignore. I need you to represent me, I said. Already working on it. Andrew replied, but this is awful. Even false charges can harm your reputation. We need to figure out why they're doing this. I understood why. I'd stopped being invisible. I'd succeeded in a way they couldn't ignore, and their disappointment daughter had become an uncontrollable threat. The documentation they provided was extensive. They gathered old high school report cards with my mediocre grades, found people willing to sign affidavits claiming I'd always struggled academically, even obtained records from Lakewood Community College, conveniently omitting my perfect GPA. Claire's statement was thorough. She claimed I had been envious of her success and had begun imitating a lawyer to compete, that I'd become delusional, creating a fantasy life. My parents described me as confused, unpredictable, someone who struggled to discern fact from fantasy. It was character assassination disguised as civic duty. Andrew examined everything with increasing incredulity. This is vindictive, he stated. They're trying to ruin you. Can they? No, he said firmly, because everything they're claiming is false. You graduated from Suffolk. You passed the bar. You're a licensed attorney in good standing. This is harassment. Then why a hearing? Because the Bar Association has to investigate all complaints. It's procedure. But once they see the evidence, your actual transcripts, bar exam results, court records, this will be dismissed immediately. I nodded, but a cold horror gripped my gut. My family had gone scorched earth. If the hearing went public, the allegations alone could harm my image. Clients might lose faith. Judges might see me differently. Everything I had built could shatter simply because my family couldn't bear watching me prosper. The hearing was scheduled for a Tuesday morning in October. My stomach churned as Andrew and I arrived. My family was already there. My parents nicely clothed, somber attitudes. Claire in a charcoal suit, looking every bit the accomplished lawyer. They brought their own lawyer, a guy from Connecticut specializing in professional misconduct. They were truly dedicated to harming me. The three-person panel entered: Judge West, David Grant, and Detective James Walker. I felt a slight thrill of relief seeing Judge West. She recognized me. She'd seen my work, but I knew she'd have to remain unbiased. The hearing began. My parents' attorney presented their argument with theatrical flair. He painted a picture of a distraught young woman who had invented her entire career. He labeled me desperate, crazy, dangerous. Clare testified. She talked about how I'd always been a troublesome child, how I struggled in school, how worried the family was when I started professing to be a lawyer. She even told people she'd won major cases. Clare continued, her voice thick with fake anguish, detailing trials I discussed around them. It was painful to witness. My mother testified. My father testified, claiming they'd try to help me, but I refused. Submitting the lawsuit, he said, was the most difficult thing they'd ever done, but they felt ethically required. Throughout it all, I sat quietly. Andrew had told me not to respond. Let them talk. Let them feel assured. Then it was our turn. Judge West stared at me. Miss Harper, you've been surprisingly silent. Would you like to respond? I met her eyes. Your Honor, I'd like to let my record speak for itself. Andrew began presenting our evidence. My Suffolk transcript showing I graduated summa cum laude, my bar exam passing certificate, my Massachusetts law license, character recommendations from instructors, colleagues, judges. David Grant leafed the materials, his face shifting from skepticism to perplexity. Then Judge West opened my case file. I kept meticulous records of every case I fought, every motion I filed, every client I represented. She stopped breathing for a moment. Her eyes expanded. She looked up at me with something like recognition. Miss Harper, she said hesitantly, you argued before me last year about the Fitzgerald case. The room became quiet. I remember you quite clearly, Judge West went on. I call it the most brilliant defense I'd seen in 30 years. Why is your family claiming you're not a licensed attorney? My mother's face had lost its color. Claire's mouth opened and closed, then opened again. My father clutched the table's edge. Andrew stood. Your Honor, if I may, the evidence plainly reveals that Miss Harper is not only a licensed attorney, but an unusually accomplished one. She graduated with honors from Suffolk University Law School, passed the bar on her first attempt, and scored in the top 5%. She has argued hundreds of successful cases, many in your courtroom, others around the state. He put another stack of paperwork on the table. These are records of Ms. Harper's cases over the past 4 years, wins, settlements, judicial commendations. She's built an impeccable reputation in the legal community. Detective James Walker spoke up. I'm confused. The complaint suggests Miss Harper has no legal education and has been committing fraud, but this evidence clearly contradicts that. Because the complaint is false, Andrew told him. Deliberately, maliciously false. David Grant stared at my family. Did you verify any of this before filing your complaint? My parents' lawyer fumbled his paperwork. We relied on our client's good faith assertions. Good faith? Andrew's voice rose. They filed a formal complaint with the State Bar Association, attempting to destroy an attorney's career and livelihood. Based on high school report cards and personal animosity, there's no good faith here. Judge West's countenance had shifted from confusion to rage. Miss Harper, I need to understand something. Your family has made serious allegations against you, allegations that, if true, would constitute criminal fraud. But the evidence shows you're a highly qualified, successful attorney. Can you explain this discrepancy? This was the moment. I had remained silent through their accusations, their falsehoods, their attempts to ruin me. Now it was time to talk. My family, I blurted out, my tone firm, has always been very clear about what they think of me. I was a disappointment daughter, the one who couldn't measure up to my brilliant older sister. When I went to community college, they considered it proof of my limitations. When I got into law school, they told me I was wasting everyone's time. When I passed the bar, my mother was too busy celebrating my sister's pregnancy to care. I glanced straight at my parents. I didn't tell you about my success because I knew you weren't interested. You didn't attend my law school graduation. You didn't congratulate me when I won the Fitzgerald case, despite it being featured in the Boston Globe. You never inquired about my job, my life, my successes. So I stopped keeping you updated on my profession. Claire tried to interject, but Judge West raised her hand. I went to a family wedding 6 months ago. I told them my mother described me as someone who does some type of legal work with criminals. And when I tried to explain what I do, my sister laughed and claimed it wasn't the same as genuine criminal lawyers. So I stopped trying to get you to see me. My father began to speak, but I wasn't finished. This complaint isn't about concern for the legal profession or protecting the public. This is about a family that can't handle the fact that the daughter they dismissed, the one they considered a failure, actually succeeded without your help, without your approval, without your acknowledgement. The room was totally quiet. David Grant glanced at my family with unmistakable disdain. You filed a fraudulent complaint with this committee because you were embarrassed by your daughter's success? No, my mother said swiftly. We genuinely believed. You believed what? Andrew interrupted. That your daughter somehow fooled the Massachusetts Bar Association, multiple judges, and hundreds of clients over 5 years? That she defended sophisticated legal matters without anybody recognizing she was unqualified? That Judge West, a distinguished judge with 3 decades of expertise, couldn't distinguish between a legitimate lawyer and a fake. Detective James Walker cleared his throat. For the record, submitting a false report to a state regulatory authority is a criminal offense. It is also possibly defamatory. Claire's face had gone white. We didn't mean this wasn't supposed to... What? I inquired gently. You didn't think there would be consequences? You thought you could destroy my career and face no repercussions? Judge West closed my file. Her look was stern. This hearing is finished, Miss Harper. The committee finds no evidence to substantiate these charges. Your qualifications are immaculate. Your record is stellar, and this complaint appears to be malicious and without substance. She gazed at my family. I want to be clear. You intended to use this committee as a weapon against a licensed attorney in good standing. You have squandered state resources in this panel's time, and your unfounded charges have potential to harm Miss Harper's image. This is unacceptable. David Grant nodded. I practice in New York as well as Massachusetts, Miss Harper, he added, turning to Clare. I'll report this event to the New York Bar Association. They take professional behavior extremely seriously. Claire's eyes widened. You can't. I didn't do anything wrong. I just believe what my parents... You're an attorney, David Grant said coldly. You should have known better than to sign an affidavit, making serious allegations without verifying the facts. That's basic legal ethics. Detective James Walker stood. Mr. and Mrs. Harper, I'm going to need you to come with me. Filing a false report is a criminal matter. My mother gasped. My father tried to argue. Their lawyer tried to interfere, but Detective Walker remained unmoved. Judge West addressed me personally. Miss Harper, on behalf of the committee, I apologize for the hardship you've gone through during this process. You have maintained a high level of professionalism, and your reputation in the legal world has not been harmed. Thank you, Your Honor. As the panel stood to leave, Judge West halted. One more thing. I'm proposing you for the Massachusetts Bar Association's Professional Excellence Award. The nomination has been languishing for several months, and after reading your documentation today, I am confident you deserve it. I felt tears approaching, but I held them back. I would not weep in front of my family. Not now. The fallout was quick and harsh. Detective Walker did bring my parents in for questioning, while they weren't ultimately prosecuted. The inquiry was extensive and humiliating. The local Connecticut newspaper published an article on the false complaint. My mother's acquaintances stopped calling. Clare received disciplinary action from the New York Bar Association for signing a false affidavit, a formal reprimand and mandatory ethics training. More damaging was the blow to her reputation. Her actions became widely known in legal circles. Clients started asking uncomfortable questions. Her firm recommended she take a leave of absence. My parents' lawyer sent a letter, trying to clarify that everything had been a misunderstanding. Andrew responded with a letter stating our plan to bring a defamation Complaint unless they publicly apologized and fully retracted all charges. They cooperated within a week. The public apology was brief and clearly unpleasant for them. It appeared in the Boston Globe and several legal periodicals, stating their complaint was unjustified and that I was a licensed and experienced attorney. It wasn't enough to heal the damage to our connection, though. Our relationship had been broken for quite some time. 3 months later, I was presented with the Massachusetts Bar Association's Professional Excellence Award. The ceremony was attended by over 300 attorneys, judges, and legal professionals. Judge West delivered it personally, speaking about my devotion, competence, and honesty. My family wasn't there. I didn't invite them. Professor Carter flew in from Ohio. She sat in the front row and cheered when they announced my name. Afterward, we had supper at the same Italian restaurant in the North End where we'd celebrated my law school graduation. "I told you," she said, raising her glass. "Don't let anyone tell you what you're capable of, especially not family." "You were right," I said. "I usually am," she grinned. "So what's next? Big firm offer? Political career?" I shook my head. "I'm staying where I am. Morrison and Associates is where I belong. Small firm, big impact. Frank's talking about making me a name partner. Harper and Morrison." Professor Carter mused. "It does." A year passed. My practice grew. I won more cases, took on more challenging clients, and coached young attorneys just like Professor Carter and Frank had mentored me. My parents called once, 6 months after the hearing. My mother's voice sounded stiff, professional. "We wanted to check in," she said. "See how you're doing." "I'm fine," I said. "That is good. Your father and I have been thinking about what occurred. We may have overreacted." May have overreacted? Not that they were incorrect or sorry. May have overreacted, as if they were unhappy about something insignificant rather than attempting to damage my career. "Is there anything else?" I asked. A long pause. "Clare is suffering. The censure had a negative impact on her professional standing. She may have to leave her firm." There it was. They weren't calling to apologize. They were calling because the golden kid had been tarnished, and someone needed to be blamed. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, and I meant it. I didn't feel guilty. I felt sad for Clare. She'd been trained to believe she was superior to everyone else, and now she was seeing that her actions had repercussions. "We were hoping you would talk to some individuals." My mother said, "Use your contacts. Help her locate a new job." The audacity was astounding. "No," I answered simply. "But she's your sister," my mother protested. "Family helps family." "Family," I said slowly, "does not file fake accusations to damage each other's professions. Family does not sign papers saying that their daughter is insane. Family does not spend years making someone feel worthless just to beg for favors when it is convenient." My father got on the phone. "You are being petty. We committed a mistake, but keeping grudges is unproductive. Clare needs assistance." Clare is an adult woman and a licensed attorney. She made choices. She signed court paperwork containing fraudulent claims. These decisions have repercussions. That is not my problem to repair. "After everything we did for you," my mother continued, her voice rising with familiar outrage. "We raised you. We backed you. You gave me $3,500 for college. I told her. You paid Clare $55,000 each year for Yale. You attended all her functions, but none of mine. You applauded her accomplishments while dismissing mine. You told people I conducted some kind of legal work while talking about her collaborations. So, no, you can't claim you backed me." "We're still your parents," my father responded. "That has to mean something." "It does," I said. "It implies I'll be civil when we encounter each other at family gatherings. It implies I will not sue you for defamation, even if I have grounds. But it does not imply I owe you anything more than basic civility." The line went quiet for a long time. "We tried," my mother eventually remarked, her voice chilly, "to reach out and mend things. You can choose to be obstinate and unforgiving, but don't expect us to continue trying." "I won't," I said and hung up. The phone conversation left me startled, but also oddly emancipated. For years, a part of me had hoped they'd see me, truly see me. That hope was now gone, and its absence felt like a release. Andrew called the next day. "Your mother's attorney contacted us," he explained. "They want to settle possible claims quietly. They're offering a big payment if you sign an NDA covering the entire affair." How substantial? He mentioned a figure that made me blink. 6 figures. Enough to pay off my condo, expand my practice, never worry about money again. "What do you think?" I asked. "I think they're scared," Andrew replied. "Scared you'll talk about this publicly and damage their reputation even more. The money is to buy your silence." I thought about it for exactly 10 seconds. "Tell them no. I am not signing anything. If I want to discuss what happened, I will. They can't pay me to pretend it didn't happen." Andrew chuckled. "I had hoped you'd say that. For the record, I believe you're making the proper decision. Some things are more important than money." The talk reminded me why I went into criminal defense. Money and power should not be allowed to hide the truth, and standing up for what's right often requires sacrificing what's comfortable. My relatives tried to purchase my silence in the same manner they sought to destroy my career, by presuming I was weak enough to accept anything they offered. They were both incorrect. 2 years after the hearing, I got an unexpected email. It came from Claire's personal address, not her work account, and the subject line was, "I'm sorry." I gazed at it for a long time before opening it. Part of me wanted to delete it, but my curiosity won out. Claire's email was long, meandering, and shockingly honest. She described how she had lost a position, how her marriage to Ethan was falling apart, and how she had spent 2 years in therapy trying to figure out why she had helped destroy her own sister's career. She didn't make excuses. She acknowledged she was envious when she saw me at the wedding, confident and accomplished in ways she hadn't anticipated. She said she had always seen me as inferior, as our parents had taught her, and that seeing me excel challenged her entire identity as the golden child. "I told myself I was protecting the legal profession," she wrote, "but I was really just trying to bring you down because I couldn't take you being excellent at something. Because if you could succeed despite everything, what does it say about me? I had every advantage while you had none, yet you nevertheless became a greater lawyer than I will ever be." The email concluded with a simple request. "I am not seeking forgiveness. I don't deserve it, but I needed you to know how sorry I am. I sincerely apologize. What I did was inexcusable, and I will live the rest of my life regretting it." I read the email 3 times before closing my laptop and going for a walk along the Charles River. Claire's apology was most likely sincere. Losing everything often forces individuals to realize their true selves. But apologies, no matter how heartfelt, did not change actions. The hearing, the charges, the attempt to ruin everything I created. I considered responding, writing something nice and forgiving, since that is what a greater person would do. But I didn't want to be the greater person anymore. I erased the email without replying. 5 years after the hearing, I was invited to speak at Suffolk Law School's graduation. Professor Carter was in the audience, beaming with delight. I stood on the stage, staring at 200 graduating law students, recognizing my younger self in their eager expressions. "Some of you come from families of attorneys," I remarked. "Some of you have connections, opportunities, and advantages. That is fantastic. Use them well." I paused, noticing the students in the rear rows who looked exhausted and apprehensive. "But not all of you have those things. Several of you are first-generation attorneys. Some of you work 3 jobs to pay for education. Some of you have family that don't comprehend your accomplishments or why they are important." The exhausted students sat up a little straighter. "I want to tell you something. Your road may be more difficult, but this does not diminish the legitimacy of your accomplishment. Actually, it makes it more amazing. You earned whatever you've accomplished. No one handed it to you. No one helped you along the way. You did it on your own." I stared straight at a young woman in the 3rd row who was silently weeping. And keep this in mind when people attempt to make you feel small or undeserving for what you've accomplished. Their perception of you is not accurate. Your art represents the truth. Your cases are true. Your license represents the truth. Hold on to that. The applause was tremendous. Afterward, scores of kids came up to thank me, and the tearful woman in the 3rd row hugged me passionately. "My parents didn't come today," she whispered. They said law school was a waste of time for someone like me. Then prove them wrong. I said, not for them, for you. She nodded, wiping her eyes, and I recognized in her the same drive I felt when I was 16, serving appetizers while everyone admired my sister. 10 years after the hearing, my firm had grown to include 15 attorneys. We specialize in criminal defense, defending individuals who couldn't afford the huge corporate firms but deserve quality counsel. We won more cases than we lost, and we changed people's lives. Frank Morrison retired and spent his days fishing in Maine, periodically calling me to gloat about the size of his most recent catch. Professor Carter died quietly in her sleep, leaving me a note that simply said, I always knew you'd make it. I am proud of you. I never reconciled with my parents. They stopped sending Christmas cards after a few years. I learned from extended relatives that they had relocated to Florida, that my mother's health was deteriorating, and that they had become somewhat reclusive. I felt nothing about it. No rage, grief, or remorse. They were just individuals I used to know. Claire wrote me periodic emails throughout the years with updates on her life, references to treatment, and modest efforts at connection. I never answered, and these eventually ceased as well. I dated, had romances, and created a life full of people who respected me and meaningful work. I also acquired a rescue dog called Justice who slept under my desk as I worked on briefs. I went to places I never thought I'd see. I mentored young attorneys who reminded me of myself, and I was content. One afternoon, while arguing in court, I saw someone sitting in the back row of the gallery, an older woman with thin gray hair and a familiar face. My mother. For a brief moment, our gazes connected. She appeared smaller and frielier than I recalled. She did not grin or wave. She simply sat there, watching me work. I went back to the judge and resumed my case. I won the motion, and when I looked back, she had left. I never found out why she arrived. Perhaps she understood what she had missed. It didn't matter if she wanted to see for herself what I had become, or if she was simply curious. I stepped out of the courthouse into the bright Boston afternoon. Justice was waiting in the car, a celebratory meal with my colleagues arranged for that evening, and a dozen cases on my desk that required my attention. I had made a life worth living. I had proven everyone wrong who had ever questioned me. I had succeeded not because of my family, but in spite of them, and that was the finest payback of all. They sought to ruin me, erase everything I'd done, and reduce me back to the disappointed daughter who was aware of her limits. They failed. I was Attorney Harper, now a partner, award winner, mentor, and advocate. I was the woman who would fight the Fitzgerald case. I was the lawyer Judge West described as brilliant. I was precisely who I'd always wanted to be. Honestly, this whole ordeal taught me so much about family, resilience, and knowing your own worth. But I have to ask you, what would you have done if your own family tried to tear down everything you built? Have you ever faced something like this? Let me know in the comments below. I really want to hear your thoughts.